Dennis Taaffe. We're here in my studio, and this is where I record all my albums. And basically what I wanted to do today is just go through some of the preset sounds that I have. I actually use a Pod XT Live here on the floor. And you'll see it's got presets here, different presets. Alright, so it's a clean sound with some chorus built in. Okay, and here, a lot of times I'll use this for just kind of that type of thing, or this type of okay, or it's also good for a clean sound. Though I use this sound, but I'd like to get more depth out of it in my recordings. And so what I do is I have an A/B switch here that runs through a multi-effects processor, which has some delay and reverb and things, and it ping-pongs in stereo and that kind of thing. And it gives you more of a spacey kind of sound. I'll show you the difference here. Let's say I was to play just, I don't know, just... So when I hit that switch, you see how that goes. So this I use quite often. Rather than using MIDI and switching to all kinds of different multi-effects, I really only use this one setting, and it's either on or off. And when it's off, that same chord sounds like that, and then here with the delays, they kind of echo further. In comparison to the clean sound, just okay. So that's the very first sound I use, and that's one of my main sounds. Use this preset, and this is kind of a louder, clean sound without the chorus, basically. And I'll sometimes use that for single notes. it's good for strumming kind of things. And you see here there's no chorus on it. So, let's say I was playing. Okay, and with the effects, it'll sound like this. In fact, it's real good for single notes kind of things too, if you're doing this kind of. But because of the delay, you only use it real sparingly. But what I discovered that's really good for is kind of a repeating delay. This kind of sound to basically swell chords as well. This kind of make it sound kind of like a keyboard. You don't actually hear the picking sound. I'll try to do it real smoothly. Especially with this sound, is a swelling of just single notes, and it's where you pick the note and then use the volume knob. And unfortunately, you can also use a volume pedal, and I wear out these volume knobs quite often because I use it a lot. But basically, it gives you this kind of swelling notes, kind of also use it without the delay. And then I use a third clean sound, and this one's kind of a real, it's not even really meant for kind of chords that ring out, you know. It's much more of a kind of a bluesy clean sound, like a Fender kind of bluesy clean sound. And this one is real good for kind of double stop type of things. It's kind of stuff. It's kind of a real bright sound in a way. So it's real good for that kind of fingering. Okay, I also use it definitely for this kind of. Right, it's kind of a clean. Same thing, I use the delay on it very much, but usually for single note kind of things, rather than chords. Because the chords sound real, you know, not real bright. So great for swelling the chords too. Like an organ kind of thing. You can also do it single notes. Nice thing is too is even playing just single chord runs, you know. To play it's not really a real rhythmic kind of. Kind of rhythmic-y kind of thing, kind of this. a real straight ahead kind of sound, clean sound as well. Another thing I use this for, again, this one's real good for a different type of delay sound too. This kind of a... upper registers too. It's kind of sets up a real kind of different rhythm than the last sound. With the delay sound, we do play off of this a little bit. Here's my main lead sound, and it's basically supposed to emulate kind of a Marshall type sound. It's a little bit smooth, it's not a real biting sound. This is basically my main kind of sound right here. What I really like about it is this real smooth sound. So you can use it for all kinds of different things, sweeping stuff. One of my favorite sounds. to kind of bite. This kind of. Good for rhythm kind of things. This kind I also use it with the delays, not so much for chords because they're kind of real big, unless I'm doing kind of an atmospheric type of thing, doing this kind of. But mostly, and you'll hear this a lot on my recordings, just this kind of single note swells, using the distortion. And the key here is to really mute the rest of the strings so that it sounds real clear. Switch a lot of times between just it's kind of a regular type of, rock guitar sound basically. switching here. With a rhythm and type of thing. Then I also use it just for rhythm kind of things. That's my main lead sound. That kind of thing. And a lot of times what I'll do is kind of combine those two, so where I'm playing single swelled note with the effects and then turn off the effects and put in a little lead line, and that gives you kind of the effect of two different guitars playing. So this kind of to do, because you can do that quite often, really. You can just kind of over here, swell it again. So here's that 80s sound, real bright, kind of real lead sound, you know, raunchy 80s kind of. Alright, you'll hear this kind of. Sound also for rhythm, it's real choppy too, so you get that kind of. it's a lot brighter, kind of a 80s, real bright kind of, ultimate rock guitar kind of sound. That 80s kind of sound. I can also put that one so it's real good with this kind of leading. Right, that kind of sound. And then I've got one with more of a notch filter in it for this kind of just playing melodies and that kind of stuff. There you can really hear the notch, like if you're doing a rhythm kind of thing. You hear that real notchy sound. Then I also use a reverse kind of sound. And this is just a reverse guitar kind of sound. You can kind of hear it. It's kind of strange. It plays everything backwards. And I use that with effects a lot of times to kind of build a bed, musical bed. And that kind of sounds like this kind of thing. Maybe if I was doing an arpeggio, for example. Repeating patterns to kind of build this, and it's all reverse guitar there. Repeat that pattern. because I play just by myself, I have drum samples, and you can hear those here. It's kind of the equivalent of a drum machine, but it's an actual drummer who played it. And so that's playing in rhythm right there. Emulate different kinds of bass sounds. And it's still a guitar, you know, you can still hear it. But what I did is basically use pitch shifters and delays and kind of cut out the direct sound to give it more of a kind of a bassy sound, you know, this kind of... type of bass sound in a way. This kind of... just a different kind of bass sound. It's just a real low, almost like a 5-string bass, and I really love that real dark sound to it, you know, real low sound. So that I can go on to all the other guitar things, right? This is why I use a looper here in my rack case, and basically it syncs to the drum patterns, so it has a real short looping time. Right? So let's say I was going to do this, right? Just some kind of bass pattern. And we're going to play those drums again, and I'm going to play and I'm going to loop the bass pattern so I can go on to play guitar. Okay, so we'll start that. So here it is, and so I'm going to go ahead and loop it. It's just going to keep repeating that pattern, always on the same tempo. I can switch back to my guitar sounds. Just a simple E chord or... Back up that going, I have another looper which doesn't sync to the drums at all. It's kind of a freestanding looper. It's a pedal board, and it'll basically record anything I play and start to play it back. Okay, and then you can add to it and that kind of thing. And the only thing to be careful is you want to be how I can use all these sounds together, improvising. For example, here. So we'll do something like that. Maybe before. With looping is that you want to change, make smooth transitions. So here I'm going to go from these loops, right, all of a sudden into just the clean guitar sound. So let's say we're playing